So we get a lot of people who are excited by the idea. We have that classic thing where we tell people the idea and they go, "Oh man, it feels so obvious. Like, why didn't I think of that?" Which is always very reassuring.
This podcast is certified fresh. Freshmediaworks.com.
Welcome to Lunch with Chris. We're your host, Chris Daly, brings you uplifting interviews with extraordinary individuals making a positive impact. Join as he introduces remarkable people who have left their mark on their respective fields.
My next guest is a gentleman from across the pond who is co-founder of a talent-sharing company named Ditto. But don't let the name fool you. They are not copying anybody. I will introduce you to Hector Stanley right after this.
Have you ever thought about doing your own podcast? It is the absolute best way to grow your brand, spread your message, and build your following. Fresh Media Works can help. We do all the heavy lifting, and you just focus on your message. To find out how easy we can make launching your new podcast, call 713-269-4620 or check us out at freshmediaworks.com. All right, everybody join me in welcoming Hector Stanley from Ditto to the show. Hector, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very well. It's been a busy day, but all good.
Well, I can tell by your accent you're not Texan. Tell me where you grew up.
That's true. I grew up in sort of southwest London, and I'm based in central London at the minute. So yeah, very much not Texan, but would love to visit one day.
I love it. So I guess talk me through some of your background, how you got into tech stuff.
So that's a great question. So I'm actually a civil engineer by trade. I was a graduate sort of civil and structural engineer on a few of the big infrastructure projects in London. So the Elizabeth line is one of them. Spent a few years doing that, and then wanted to, I guess, become a bit broader. So
Right.
I went and worked for PwC, doing project management and delivery. While I was there, ended up working and partnering with a whole bunch of software companies that work with us as consultants. And that just really, I just could see the difference that one person could make, and that really excited me. So from there, took my leap and joined a Series A startup. And yeah, the rest of my career has been startups. So worked at seed and pre-seed, and finally last year got around to actually start my own company, which I feel like all my friends were waiting for me to do. So
Nice.
It's nice to be in tech finally.
So where did the idea come from? Because, this whole sharing economy has created all kinds of disruptive businesses. And this one, when I heard it the other day, I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So when I was in engineering, when I was in construction, it was quite common to be sort of loaned and borrowed between companies, particularly if you were a really junior grad. So for 6 months, I'd be working on a site in sort of, in West London, working in the cold, pouring concrete, doing all that sort of stuff. And then that project ended and my boss said, well, we've got nothing for you, but we don't want to lose you because you've gained all these skills. So, my mate who runs another construction company, he needs staff. We're just going to loan you out to them. No idea how the contracts worked. No idea how anything was done in the back end, or if it was done well at all. But essentially that was my first experience of secondments and external mobility and how it all worked. And last year I met my two co-founders, Susie and Dave, and both of them had experienced regrettable redundancy cycles. So letting people go and then hiring them back, which I think is pretty classic.
Yeah.
And so I explained my experience and what what I thought would be good. And we all sat down and said, well, why don't we try scaling this up and building a platform so everyone could do secondments? And the rest is history, right? We got funding middle of last year to give this a really good go, and this is where we are now.
I love it. And so what kind of acceptance have you seen of it?
So we get a lot of people who are excited by the idea. We have that classic thing where we tell people the idea and they go, "Oh man, it feels so obvious. Like, why didn't I think of that?" Which is always very reassuring. there are definitely companies who are much more nervous to let their talent go elsewhere.
Yeah.
They want to cling on to their talent, and I totally understand that. You've nurtured your talent, you've got them to a place where you're really happy with them, and so we do find there's a big bit of our sale is an educational piece. Explaining that people are going to expect variety and development, and they're going to expect their skills to improve. If you keep them and you pigeonhole them, then they're going to leave to find that anyway. So this is a way of, increasing their attention and increasing their satisfaction. Even though it feels uncomfortable, it's the right thing to do. And we have a bunch of stats that back that up. And often it's just a case of telling the story of the secondments that we've been on. And, we always went back. So yeah, it's mixed is the short answer.
Nice. So in the U.S., we have W-2 employees and 1099 employees.
Yeah.
And there's a huge difference in that. So who's employing these, or are they all freelancers?
So they remain employed by we call it home and host. So your home employer is the sort of original employer that you originally have the job with. They remain employed by them. And then the two businesses have an agreement as to, the situation of the employee, where they're going to be based, how they're going to be reimbursed, etc. But fundamentally, you're still, and as strange as it sounds, it does work. Like, you're still employed by your original employer, which is the home employer in our story.
And so for tax purposes, it would seem like the home employer writes them off. The host employer writes off what they spend on them.
Essentially, yeah. So the host employer just has to pay for essentially their salary. They're just reimbursing the resource to the home, the original employer,
right?
And then the employer handles things like the income tax and the VAT that surrounds that. But the person hosting them doesn't incur any sort of taxes on that.
And so I would imagine, as a host employer, I'm paying benefits, I'm paying, vacation, I'm paying healthcare. Well, you don't have to worry about that there. But again, I'm thinking very U.S. centric, but I'm paying these benefits. I would have to then charge them enough to cover their portion of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the way that we do it is our contracts are pretty flexible. So, if you're happy to continue paying for their benefits and you just get, reimbursed the sort of 90% of the cost of the employee, then you can carry on doing that. Or if it really is sort of critical to offset that cost, we do have parts of our contract and parts of our clauses that allow you to add the cost of those benefits into the contract, which again, it just makes it more, it makes it easier for companies to do it, because you can offset that cost.
Yeah, it would seem to me, and check me if I'm wrong, that small business would have a greater use for this.
Yes, agreed. So larger businesses who we've spoken to have been interested, but fundamentally they have the ability to do internal mobility. So they can move people from team to team, and that fixes the productivity problem, and it gives the variety in the learning. When it comes to small businesses, they really can't do that. And if they have someone sitting on the bench, they feel that burn way more than a big organization that can kind of eat that up. So small consultancies are like the classic use case for us, where they really can't have a bench of more than sort of 4 or 5% of their workforce. Whereas, a big four consultancy can have a massive bench and can absorb that, and has internal mobility as well. So we're definitely seeing much more traction in the small companies. And I think that's what you'd expect. Yeah.
Cool. And then, so let's say I had a small business and I need a part-time employee or salesperson, right? Where is the risk there in taking them on and not knowing if you're going to be able to send them out and get some of your costs covered? How do they mitigate that risk?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So I mean, currently the option of a secondment is there. There's no guarantee that they'll be placed, and that risk is always going to be there, hard to mitigate. What you can do is you can hire someone just a couple of days a week, and then if you can find a secondment for the remaining days, you can increase their contract to be a full-time contract. And essentially, you just make sure that they're paid for their 5 days and they get to do a split role. We have had it in some of the startups that we work with where they might hire an engineer, so, a software engineer who tend to be quite expensive, and they might share them with another couple of other startups, and we'll just make sure that everyone is being reimbursed for the time back to the home company. It's more complicated, but if it gives everyone the sort of the resource flexibility they need, then at some point someone is going to turn around and say, right, we need this guy full time. Like, let's move it back and consolidate. But it just gives those companies a resource that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And the original company, just a bit of flexibility with their bottom line.
Got it. And what about, do you have the capability or the interest in having employees work something similar to Fiverr or Upwork, where they don't have an actual host, they're just available as a set of resources?
So it's not something that we're working through right now. We're mostly focused on employees who are either full or part-time, but permanently employed. It's definitely something we've talked about, is having this, as we grow, we're going to end up with certainly this network with a pool of resources, and maybe a sort of a Fiverr Upwork model on the side of Ditto might work quite well, where you can pull on this sort of freelancer pool as well. I mean, the advantage of secondments are broadly that you get a pre-vetted member of staff. You know where they're coming from. You can talk to their manager, and on top of that, they're almost always going to be cheaper than a freelancer or a contractor. So we're leveraging those benefits for now, but I could see us having a sort of a separate sort of Fiverr style platform in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about that as a side, an adjunct to what you're doing, but sites like Fiverr and Upwork, they don't disclose it, but they have companies who literally list all their employees as Fiverr clients. But there's no transparency there, so you can't talk to their boss, So they already have what you're doing as a side.
Yeah, that's true.
It seems like there might be some competition there.
Yeah, there definitely might be some overlap. I mean, there's definitely just general competition with Upwork and Fiverr, just simply because they provide temporary resources at competitive costs, and that's for at least one half of our marketplace. Our argument as well. So yeah, I can imagine there's going to be a little bit of crossover, particularly when you talk about those companies that just list all their employees, and you might not know about it.
Right. Yeah, because they're not transparent about it.
No.
I guess the transparency. Yeah. So you rolled out in the UK, I assume. Where all are you available?
Yeah. So just the UK for now. Okay. We're quite focused on the cities and the hubs, although obviously we do take lots of remote employees as well. We currently have secondments in London and Manchester and Bristol. Once we are sort of a bit more set up in the UK and have a bit more of understanding of the layout, the two obvious places to expand, like one way is Europe and the other way is the US. And it's interesting, we do get interest from companies abroad who say, well, I would like to second someone from another country. And so international secondments are something that we're really excited to add. We're always looking at partnerships to be able to just facilitate that. And it is more difficult to do simply because of the employment law involved. There's just more legal setup to actually do it, but the opportunity size is obviously vast, and so it's definitely something we would look to do. But currently, just based on our size and our scale, we're just very UK focused.
Got it. And so, I would, you tell me, is the majority of your usage remote workers or hands-on in-person workers?
The majority right now is hands-on in person. That might simply be because that's just the sort of candidate that we've been searching for. We have a few remote, but I think fundamentally, certainly right now, the sort of medium-sized companies we're talking to like people to at least come into the office 2 days a week. So it's a slight hybrid model, but the minority is fully remote. Although I could see that changing, to be honest, as particularly with software engineers, so many software engineers are based not in the city. And so as we sort of focus down on sort of certain industries and certain skill sets, I think there will be more remote people on the platform for sure.
Definitely. And so, yeah, when you're ready to come to the U.S., we need to talk because I so want to be involved with the U.S. version of this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll need help understanding the market and
Mhm.
all of that stuff. So yes, consider yourself signed up.
Nice, nice. Uh, what else should people know about Ditto that I didn't think to ask?
No, that's a great question. So I mean, we're live and we're working now. If you're in another country, we're always having conversations with people. So you can find us at dittotalent.com.
Nice.
Feel free to send us an email and just reach out. We'll always book in a call with you, and we're always interested in where people are getting excited about this idea. We're pretty agnostic to the industry you're in. So obviously, we focus a lot on tech, but that's just because of our backgrounds. So feel free to reach out, ask any questions you have. Hopefully, it's an exciting concept, and yeah, we're always all ears, to be honest.
Yeah, no, when we first started talking, your examples were the trades, uh,
Yeah.
but you're focusing on tech. Do you find the trades are interested in that, in pulling a plumber, pulling a, whatever?
Yeah. So the larger trades companies we've had chats to, and actually, I mean, construction on the whole has been really interesting. We had some very positive conversations with construction and actually architecture firms. I think it's part of the thing of most of them aren't in competition. There isn't an IP problem. Everyone builds stuff the
Right.
same way. So sharing resources, particularly when the market is quite chaotic. It's quite unpredictable at the minute in construction and architecture in the UK, certainly.
Mhm.
So right now, lots of people are interested in getting on the platform. We actually do have a few architects on the Ditto platform who are looking for placement. So that's actually quite exciting.
I like that. My son is a general contractor in the States,
Nice.
and so he pulls trades just freelance,
Hmm.
when he needs them because he can't employ them full time. He doesn't have that much work. What about your platform would make that easier for someone who is already doing this?
Yeah. So it's a good question. So actually, one of the architecture firms we have on is a small firm called Maddie Kessler. She's sort of a two-man band in London doing these amazing architectural designs, but her work is quite ad hoc.
Hmm.
She's not always 100% at capacity, but then suddenly she'll be dropped on a big project for 3 months and won't have capacity. Um, there are freelancers that she knows that she trusts, but they're not always available, and
Yeah.
so she's left with this choice of work twice the number of hours or take a risk with a freelancer she doesn't know. What she'd much rather do is borrow a mid-level architect from one of the big architecture firms who she knows, and
Right.
we're actually in conversations with them to set that up, even just that one sort of flow of people, because it just means that she can borrow someone. It's great experience for the individual. They get to essentially take the lead on a project, and it's from a company that she trusts. So yeah, there are definitely synergies there, and maybe the same thing applies for general contractors in the US. If your son could borrow from one of the larger contractor firms,
Yeah.
that might be quite exciting for him. He'd know the person really well, and he'd be able to
Oh, that's
trust that they're going to
huge.
be good. Yeah, yeah.
Tell me, as far as your company, how does Ditto get paid? What is your business model?
Yeah. So commercially, the way that we get paid is not that dissimilar from Upwork or Fiverr. I mean, they have
Right.
a very compelling model. We essentially take a 6% fee on the salary reimbursement that the host pays.
Mhm.
So we're trying to get as many people to use the platform as possible, hence why we're trying to get the supply side up. So those companies right now don't pay anything. They just come on board and they're able to use the platform, send
Nice.
out your staff. I think, certainly I have this sort of belief that, you should be giving your staff these development opportunities anyway.
Yeah.
But we have obviously tried to lower the barrier as much as we can. And on the other side, 6%, it's just an addition for us that allows us to keep our platform running and pay our salaries. We're not
Right.
trying to make huge profits. And it's a slightly intentional number because it does actually, on that side, undercut the likes of Upwork and Fiverr and the
Nice.
other freelancer markets. So That's the way that we create revenue. And yeah, it's going pretty well so far, which is quite nice. What's nice is the for us, even though we're sort of VC backed as a company, the revenue that we've made has allowed us to kind of extend our runway way past our investment. So it just gives us more time to figure this out and grow the marketplace and talk to people and learn more about like building this thing, basically.
Excellent. And so if I understood it right, somebody listing an employer availability, they don't pay to list them. But when they do hire somebody, the host company charges a set amount and you take 6% of that.
So we take 6% on top of the salary.
On top of that. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
Cool. That's awesome. I love that. And so once again, give people how they can find out more about you.
So I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Hector Stanley, obviously. And if you want to go to our website, you can obviously find our emails there and send us a bit of you can fill in our contact form if you'd like, and I'll always reach out. And that's dittotalent.com. So you can find us there.
I love that. Cool. Well, Hector Stanley, gosh, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me, sharing what I think. I've said the word 14 times. Brilliant.
and it's so nice to hear it. Thank you so much.
Hey, you there. Yes, you. Have you ever thought about unleashing the power of AI for your business? Fresh Media Works is here to make it happen. From boosting productivity to revolutionizing customer experiences, AI holds endless possibilities. A small investment in AI, combined with our expert guidance, will begin to transform your business quickly. Ready to dive in? Give us a call now at 713-269-4620 or head over to freshmediaworks.com/AI.